CDL Practice Test, Texas, Air Brake, Part 1. Question number 1. Truck tractors with air brakes that were built on or after the 1st of March, 1997 are equipped with A. An extra set of brakes, B. Voice-activated brakes, C. Cruise control, D. Anti-lock braking systems, ABS. The correct answer is here, D. Anti-lock braking systems, ABS. Explanation. Truck tractors with air brakes that were manufactured on or after the 1st of March, 1997 are required to be equipped with anti-lock braking systems, ABS. ABS is required in any other type of vehicle with air brakes that was manufactured on or after the 1st of March, 1998. Question number 2. Why do you need to drain air tanks regularly? A. Because the air gets old and needs to be replaced. B. To allow for a change in air pressure. C. To remove bad air from the tanks. D. Because compressed air contains some water which must be drained from the tanks. The correct answer is here, D. Because compressed air contains some water which must be drained from the tanks. Explanation. Compressed air in an air brake system usually contains a certain amount of water and compressor oil. The water and oil can damage the brakes if left to accumulate in the system. Tanks must be drained regularly to remove this buildup. Question number 3. To drive a tractor trailer with air brakes, you must have A. A Class A CDL, B. Any CDL without an air brakes restriction, C. A Class A CDL without an air brakes restriction. The correct answer is here, C. A Class A CDL without an air brakes restriction. Explanation. To legally pull a trailer whose gross vehicle weight rating, GCWR, exceeds 10,000 pounds, you'll have to obtain a Class A CDL. If you don't pass a knowledge test on air brakes, your CDL will include a restriction limiting you to driving only vehicles without air brakes. Question number 4. Which of the following is not part of the braking process when you're driving a tractor trailer? Combination vehicle with an anti-lock braking system, ABS. A. You should use only the braking necessary to stay safely in control. B. Brake the same way no matter what you're driving, a vehicle with ABS, a vehicle with a trailer, or something else. C. When you slow down, you should monitor your tractor and trailer and ease off the brakes to keep control. D. You should drive faster so that you will be able to keep the trailer and tractor straight. The correct answer is here, D. You should drive faster so that you will be able to keep the trailer and tractor straight. Explanation. When driving a tractor-trailer combination vehicle that has ABS, drive the same way that you always have. Do not drive any differently just because of ABS. Only use the braking necessary to keep control. Pay attention when you slow down, and brake the same way regardless of what you're driving. Never speed up unless it is part of the safe driving process already. Question number 5. When can you leave your truck unattended without first applying the parking brakes or chocking the wheels? A. Never. B. If you will be conducting your pre-trip inspection. C. If you will only be away from the truck for a few minutes. The correct answer is here, A. Never. Explanation. Never leave your vehicle unattended without first applying the parking brakes or chocking the wheels. Your vehicle might roll away and hit something or someone. Question number 6. To apply the parking brakes under normal conditions. A. Be sure the air brake system is fully pressurized. B. Turn off the engine. C. Let the air out of the brake chambers. The correct answer is here. C. Let the air out of the brake chambers. Explanation. The parking brake control allows you to evacuate air from the brake chambers. With the air gone, the spring brakes will come on automatically and hold your vehicle in place. Question number 7. If the air compressor should develop a leak, what will keep the air in the tanks? A. The tractor protection valve. B. The one-way check valve. C. The emergency relay valve. The correct answer is here. B. The one-way check valve. Explanation. Federal regulations require a one-way check valve or an equivalent device to be located at the entrance to the first air tank. Open bracket. In a dual air brake system, there must be a one-way check valve at the entrance to both the primary and secondary air tanks. If the air compressor or the line connecting it to the air tank develops a leak, the one-way check valve will prevent the air from going out. Question number 8. Why should you be in the proper gear before starting down a hill? A. The clutch is made to be used on even surfaces. B. You will not be able to shift into a lower gear once you are going down a hill. C. You need to be in the same gear at the bottom of the hill. The correct answer is here. B. You will not be able to shift into a lower gear once you are going down a hill. Explanation. When you're about to start down a steep downgrade, release the gas pedal, shift into a low gear, and use engine braking to slow your vehicle. Don't try to downshift after your speed has already built up. You will not be able to shift into a lower gear then. You may not even be able to get back into any gear and all engine braking effect will be lost. If you try to downshift an automatic transmission after your speed has already built up, you may damage the transmission. Question number 9. Under which conditions are front wheel brakes good? A. None. B. All weather conditions. C. Good weather only. D. Wet or icy conditions only. The correct answer is here. B. All weather conditions. Explanation. Front wheel brakes have been shown to be ideal under all weather and driving conditions. Front wheel braking is unlikely to cause a skid even on icy roads. Question number 10. Chemical changes in the brake lining, which reduce friction and cause expansion of the brake drums, is known as A. Brake overheating. B. Green fade. C. Surface scorch. D. Brake fade. The correct answer is here. D. Brake fade. Explanation. Excessive heat causes chemical changes to the brake lining, which reduces friction, and it causes expansion of the brake drums. As this happens, the shoes and linings have to move farther to contact the drums, causing the brakes to fade. Question number 11. All vehicles equipped with air brakes have A. A supply pressure gauge. B. An air use gauge. C. A backup hydraulic system. The correct answers here. A supply pressure gauge. Explanation. Every vehicle equipped with air brakes must have a supply pressure gauge that shows how much air pressure is available for braking. Question number 12. What does the front brake limiting valve in some older vehicles do when turned to slippery? A. It cuts the air supply to the front brakes and increases the pressure in the rear brakes. B. It decreases the air pressure to all brakes by half. C. It reduces the air pressure in the front brakes to 0.75 that of normal conditions. D. It cuts the standard air pressure to the front brakes by half. The correct answers here. D. It cuts the standard air pressure to the front brakes by half. Explanation. There are both normal and slippery settings. When set on slippery, the standard air pressure sent to the front brakes is cut in half. This was believed to help maintain control of the vehicle in slippery conditions. Question number 13. What should you never do when the spring brakes are on? A. Press the gas pedal down. B. Use the modulating valve. C. Check the air in the air tanks. D. Push the brake pedal down. The correct answers here. D. Push the brake pedal down. Explanation. If the brake pedal is pushed while the spring brakes are on, it can damage the brakes by combining the forces of the springs and the air pressure. Question number 14. The air entering air storage tanks may contain A. Frost. B. Gravel. C. Antifreeze. D. Water and compressor oil. The correct answers here. D. Water and compressor oil. Explanation. The air that enters air storage tanks in an air brake system usually contains a certain amount of water and compressor oil. Because accumulations of these materials can damage the braking system, tanks are equipped with drains to allow their removal. Question number 16. According to federal regulations on air brakes, the brake linings of drum brakes must be at least thick. A. 1/3 inch. B. 1/4 inch. C. 1/2 inch. The correct answers here. B. 1/4 inch. Explanation. According to federal regulations on air brakes, the brake linings of non-steering axle brakes must be at least 1/8 inch thick for disc brakes or at least 1/4 inch thick for drum brakes. The brake linings of steering axle drum brakes can be thinner. Question number 17. The air compressor will stop pumping air into the air tanks at C. A. 125. B. 150. C. 100. The correct answers here. A. 125. Explanation. The air compressor will start pumping air into the air tanks at about 100 C and stop at about 125 C. This action is controlled by the air compressor governor. Question number 18. If a low air pressure warning comes on, what should you do? A. You can safely continue until you get to the next service center. B. Turn it off so that it will not distract you. C. Fan the brakes. D. Pull off the road as soon as it is safe to do so. The correct answer is here. D. Pull off the road as soon as it is safe to do so. Explanation. When the low air pressure warning light and buzzer first come on, bring the vehicle to a safe stop right away, while you can still control the brakes. Question number 19. How is the parking brake released? A. By tapping the brake pedal 3 times. B. By starting the vehicle. C. By tapping the accelerator twice. D. By pushing in the brake control knob. The correct answer is here. D. By pushing in the brake control knob. Explanation. In vehicles with air brakes, the parking brake is controlled by a knob. The knob is pulled out to apply the brakes, and pushed in to release them. Question number 20. They are used to hold compressed air for the air brake system. A. Bulkheads. B. Containerized loads. C. Hydraulic brakes. D. Storage tanks. The correct answer is here. D. Storage tanks. Explanation. Storage tanks are used to hold the compressed air for an air brake system. The number and size of the tanks will vary between vehicles, but they'll hold enough air to use the brakes several times, even if the compressor breaks down. Question number 21. The parking brake control. A. Lets the air out of the brake chambers. B. Applies the brakes during normal driving. C. Applies the brakes in the event of an emergency. The correct answer is here. A. Lets the air out of the brake chambers. Explanation. When you apply the parking brake control, air is released from the brake chambers, causing the springs to apply the brakes and hold your vehicle in place. Question number 22. With the controlled braking method, you A. Apply the hand valve for 1 second and then depress the brake pedal firmly. B. Brake fully, release the brakes when the wheels lock, and fully apply the brakes again when the wheels start to roll. C. Apply the brakes as hard as you can without locking the wheels. The correct answer is here. C. Apply the brakes as hard as you can without locking the wheels. Explanation. With controlled braking, you brake as hard as you can without locking the wheels, and keep steering to a minimum. If the wheels do lock or you need to steer more than this, release the brakes and reapply them as soon as you can. Question number 23. Excessive use of the service brakes may result in overheating, which can lead to A. Expansion of the brake drums. B. Increased contact between the brake drums and the brake linings. C. Improper adjustment of the S-cams. The correct answer is here. A. Expansion of the brake drums. Explanation. Overusing the service brakes can cause overheating and expansion of the brake drums. The brake shoes will have to move farther to contact the brake drums, making braking harder or eventually impossible. Brake fade. Question number 24. How does letting up on the brake pedal release the brakes? A. The system releases the brakes through a combination of air being released and the brake levers being loosened. B. Compressed air is pushed back into the air tanks. C. The action releases the brake pads. D. Some compressed air is let out of the system, causing the brake pads and or shoes to disengage. The correct answer is here, D. Some compressed air is let out of the system, causing the brake pads and or shoes to disengage. Explanation. When a person lets go of the brake pedal, the air pressure in the air tanks is reduced by letting air out of the system. This causes the brakes to be released. Question number 25. A typical air brake system is fully charged at A. 75 C, B. 150 C, C. 125 C. The correct answer is here, C. 125 C. Explanation. A typical air brake system is fully charged at 125 C. Check the manufacturer's specifications for the actual figure for your vehicle. Question number 26. The safety valve is set to automatically reduce pressure at A. 50 C, B. 150 C, C. 100 C. The correct answer is here, B. 150 C. Explanation. The safety valve, which protects the system from excessive pressure, is usually set to open when the system reaches 150 C.